In June 2025, Hainan Airlines was awarded the Skytrax 5-star airline rating for the 14th consecutive year and ranked 10th in the world's best airlines. Recently, I've flown with 4 different Chinese airlines: Air China, China Eastern, China Southern, and Xiamen Airlines. So will Hainan Airlines really deliver a better experience than what I had with them? This long-haul flight from Chongqing to Paris should give us some answers.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard.
I've just arrived from a steaming hot Bangkok and made the most of my 7-hour stopover to visit the beautiful but freezing cold city of Chongqing. And now I'm back at the airport for my night flight to Paris. Here, at China's 9th busiest airport by passenger traffic, Terminal 3, opened in 2017, is huge. But at this late hour, it doesn't offer as many shops and restaurants as you might expect, especially compared to other major Chinese airports. Our Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner is scheduled to depart at 2:30 a.m. It's 1:37 as I finally reach the gate, and boarding should begin shortly. Just enough time to admire tonight's aircraft, a 9-year-old Dreamliner registered B1540. Everyone's now queuing, so let's join them. Tonight I'll be flying in economy. I managed to get a great fare from Bangkok to Paris. Altogether, these 2 flights cost me just $285.
Okay, yes, we're calling, please.
The first 4 rows of this cabin are premium economy, with 36 seats that are essentially the same as in economy, but with more legroom. For this flight, I'm in 54A, a window seat and one of the 226 seats in the economy cabin. I have to say, I find the cabin crew uniforms absolutely beautiful. Here's my seat. Tonight the flight is completely full, and at these prices it's easy to see why. The pillow is nice and fluffy, and the blanket is of decent quality, soft enough for a comfortable flight. The advertised 31-inch seat pitch feels quite limited, although to be fair, I'm 6'1". Still, it feels cramped. Considering the price, it's nice to see an amenity kit included. Let's take a look inside. It's quite decent, especially the eye mask. The safety video is nice, but not particularly memorable. Let's take a look at the in-flight entertainment system. Apologies if the images are a bit blurred. Throughout this night flight, the cabin lighting was kept quite low and my camera struggled to focus. The touchscreen is quite responsive, and the movie selection is extensive, but less than half of the films are non-Chinese. It's the same story for TV series. Non-Chinese content makes up only about 15% of the selection. You might say that's normal, it's a Chinese airline. And that's true. But more than half of the passengers on board don't appear to be Chinese. There's a wide selection of music available though. There's also a well-designed section dedicated to children. It's 2:41 as we are pushed back, 11 minutes behind schedule. Sorry about the shaking, there was some turbulence. Hainan Airlines advertises high-speed Wi-Fi via China Unicom Aviation. Let's see how it performs. Prices range from 9 to 42 US dollars, but unlike many airlines today, there's no free messaging option. I chose not to pay, so I can't access the service. About an hour after takeoff, a meal was served. It was now 3:45 AM, not exactly a time to eat, but I decided to give it a try. Plastic cutlery is still used in China. Chinese mustard? A mysterious Chinese condiment? And butter. But that one? Definitely not for eating. Caramelized pork with a side of rice and vegetables. Was it edible? Yes. Was it tasty? Unfortunately not. Same for the cake, so I ended up just having the bread roll with butter and the salad starter. Another issue is that drinks were only served about 15 minutes after the meal, and as you can see, there was no bottle of water on the tray. After the meal, I tried to get some sleep, but I felt really cramped in that seat, and only manage a few moments of intermittent rest. One advantage is that as a Chinese airline, it can fly over Russia, so the flight time is around 11 hours instead of 13 to 14 hours on routes that avoid Russian airspace. About 7.5 hours into the flight, we're passing just north of Moscow, covered with haze. About 2 hours before landing, a second meal is served, more like a breakfast, even if it looks very similar to our lunch or dinner. Maybe apart from the strawberry jam. The taste is slightly better than the previous meal, so this time I'll eat everything on a tray. And after 11 hours and 11 minutes, we land 50 minutes ahead of schedule at Paris Charles de Gaulle, where it's pitch black and raining. After 11 hours sitting in this cramped seat, without even getting up once or going to the restroom, and of course with no real sleep, I'm exhausted. And to make matters worse, there was this faint smell in the cabin towards the end of the flight. When my neighbor left her seat, I realized why. She had peed on it. Not exactly the best way to end a flight. And of course, at Charles de Gaulle Terminal 1, the automated passport control machines weren't working, so we had to wait about 30 minutes before getting through. And then another half-hour wait for the luggage, in what's supposed to be a 4-star terminal, according to Skytrax. So, speaking of Skytrax, what's my verdict on this flight with a 5-star airline ranked 10th in the world? First, as a reminder, I paid just 9,280 baht, or $285 for these 2 flights from Bangkok to Paris via Chongqing, including a checked bag. So, at 13.6 out of 20, this was a rather average experience overall. There are definitely some positives, the price is excellent, the IFE screen is good, and arriving ahead of schedule is always appreciated. But on the downside, the seat wasn't comfortable, the first meal was mediocre, and the entertainment content itself wasn't particularly engaging. At this price point, it still represents good value for money, but clearly this is not quite the level you might expect from a 5-star airline.